Yo, what up? This is D Knight, and you're listening to the Pardon The Insurrection podcast. My oh my, we've had so much going on. For starters, in case you missed it, we've got a new addition to the Pardon Pie family, Tara Dublin. Make sure you go follow her on Twitter at Tara Dublin Rocks. Also, pick up a copy of her book while you're at it. Make her day, The Sound of Settling. A very fun and interesting read compared to the things we talk about on this podcast. But yeah, we're heading toward the do or die time for the 2024 election. Go ahead and hit up JoeBiden.com. Get that man like $1 a month or something. Help his campaign staff up and get prepared to try and save our democracy. And make sure to grab like one other person you know and tell them about the podcast. Make sure they subscribe and tune in every single week. We got a lot of things coming up for you this year. We need all the support that we can get. So if you do your part and help us grow our audience, we'll do our part and help elect Joe Biden in 2024 and save American democracy. And this is the Pardon the Insurrection podcast. Yo, what up? This is your boy D Knight, and you're listening to the Pardon the Insurrection podcast. Solo pod today. I've given my co-host Carol and Todd a day off. They've worked quite hard, and considering Todd fell asleep on us the last time we were together, I think she's earned a bit of respite. Yeah, so what we'll do today is take a more serious dive into some of the headlines from the previous week. As I mentioned, it's been batshit insane, as per the usual. Thank you, Molly Jong Fast, for coining the term the new abnormal. It's very fitting. Among the material allegedly seized from former President Trump's home were numerous empty folders that once contained classified information or intel designated to be returned to the military, renewing questions over the fallout from the potential mishandling of records that have since been recovered. In a more detailed inventory from the Justice Department, unsealed by the judge on Friday, the government detailed that interspersed with Trump's personal belongings were 48 empty folders and classified banners, as well as another 42 empty folders that were labeled Return to Staff Secretary/Military Aid. The inventory list detailed that among the more than 100 classified documents found in Mar-a-Lago, 3 documents marked confidential, 17 marked secret, and 7 documents marked top secret were found in Trump's office. The inventory also noted that the records were mixed with clothes, books, and other personal effects, as well as some 10,000 presidential records that likely should be maintained by the National Archives. So given that this topic has been beaten to death over the past few days, I think what I'll do is just lay out a couple of my big takeaways. Number one, why so many goddamn documents, bro? Like 10,000 presidential records, like whether they're classified or not. What are you doing with so many government documents down at your fucking Florida golf course? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, you don't have any use for those. Like, it's just absolutely absurd. Like, just the sheer volume alone is nonsense. Number two, why are you mixing fucking classified information in together with your personal shit? Like, your clothes and shit, your fucking newspaper clippings, and your fucking Time magazine covers that are fake that you had made for whatever, whatever ego-driven reason you needed to be on the fucking cover of Time. Why are you mixing all that shit with classified information? Like, our most top secret, sensitive shit. Stuff from spies and fucking satellite imagery. Like, what is going on there? Like, I don't understand the level of incompetence you'd have to think you could just leave these things lying around with your personal effects at a fucking golf resort. Like, it's mind-boggling. Whatever. Okay. Number 3, as revealed by the underlying affidavit, the FBI was in search of materials in Mar-a-Lago with a classification designation of secret/FRD, which stands for Formally Restricted Data. Well, what is that, you ask? It is classified information that was once restricted data, but the Department of Energy and the Department of Defense jointly decided it should be formally restricted data because it concerns military utilization. For example, this includes nuclear stockpile quantities, nuclear weapon safety and storage, nuclear weapon yields, and locations of nuclear weapons, both past and present. What that means is Donald Trump did, in fact, steal the fucking secret nuclear weapons documents. Can only take that to mean that based upon the boxes of evidence they originally obtained from Mar-a-Lago, that they found evidence that Trump had, in fact, taken secret nuclear weapons documents. And so when they returned with the search warrant, they knew what they were looking for. Congratulations. He stole the fucking nuclear codes and shit. The media is not making too big of a deal about that. Not surprisingly, no one cares. Pardon Pod cares, though. We care about the stolen nuclear secrets. Because, of course. God, this motherfucker just does some insane shit. And also, the judge involved in unsealing the underlying affidavit has agreed to appoint a special master to review records seized by the FBI during the search of Mar-a-Lago. In her ruling, Judge Aileen Cannon granted Trump's request for a special master, an independent third party who was sometimes assigned in sensitive cases to review materials that could be covered by attorney-client privilege. Which is ironic here because Trump is not a lawyer. And there is no attorney-client privilege as it pertains to the documents seized by the FBI. In fact, one of Trump's core arguments is that the documents should be protected by executive privilege, which also makes little sense because he's not the executive. The FBI, in fact, is a part of the executive branch, and President Biden had deferred to the National Archives that they get to make the decision on whether those documents are in fact protected by executive privilege. And they decided that no, they were not. So the real question here is, what is Judge Cannon doing? Hell if I know. I mean, maybe trying to cover for Trump in some shape, form, or fashion. The DOJ has expressed that the appointment of a special counsel would delay their criminal investigation to some degree. And the only thing I can assume is that this judge, who was appointed by Trump, sees that as a positive. I mean, I really don't have any answers. She is going out of her way to rule in Trump's favor, making rulings that they didn't file a motion for, presenting them legal arguments that they didn't make. I don't know. I have no answers for you on that. Bitch crazy. That's all I got. Moving on. John Eastman appeared before a grand jury in Fulton County, Georgia Wednesday and pleaded the fifth in addition to asserting attorney-client privilege, his lawyers say. Eastman, if you're unfamiliar, is a former Trump lawyer who authored the 6-point coup memo on how Mike Pence could keep Trump in office after losing the election. Now he's under investigation in Georgia as part of the fake elector plot. If you can believe it, it's a totally separate plot from Trump's phone call to Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger asking him to change the vote tally in the 2020 election. There sure is a lot of Fifth Amendment invoking from Trump to his family to this guy. And of course, we have Rudy Giuliani, who is constantly invoking his fifth of vodka. Also, conservative Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson, who's currently trailing in the polls, was paying a campaign worker who was a bogus elector in the scheme to overthrow Joe Biden's presidential victory. His spokesman confirmed that Pam Travis, one of 10 Wisconsin Republicans who signed bogus paperwork claiming to be an elector backing then President Donald Trump in an alleged plot to overturn the 2020 presidential election. Travis's LinkedIn page says she worked for Ron Johnson since March, and Federal Election Commission financial reports show the campaign has paid her just over $10,000 since April, as well as more than $3,500 in reimbursements for mileage costs between May and July. All I can say is that number seems low. I feel like if you're going to try and compensate a fake elector for trying to help them overturn the 2020 election, you may want to pay them a little bit better than that. But yeah, congratulations, Ron Johnson. Your campaign's a shit show. Good luck with that, buddy. Good luck, bro. And we continue. Lukoil chairman Ravel Maganov became the 8th Russian energy executive to die suddenly this year. Maganov, chairman of Russian oil giant Lukoil, died last Thursday after falling out of a window at the Capital Central Clinical Hospital, according to a Russian state-sponsored media outlet. Maganov, along with Lukoil, one of the few critics of Russia's invasion of Ukraine and its ongoing military operations there in the region. Yeah, it's not a real mystery what happened here, guys. He opened his mouth, and Putin opened a window, and Maganov got pushed through it. Long story short, not a complicated story there. In unrelated news, somehow, the chief financial officer of the troubled Bed Bath & Beyond company has been identified as the man who jumped to his death from the iconic new Tribeca skyscraper known as the Jenga building. Gustavo Arnal, forgive me if I'm mispronouncing his name, who was also an executive vice president for the struggling home goods retailer, plunged from the 18th floor. Jesus Christ. How many dudes have to fall from buildings these days before we start asking? Oh, you know what? Surprise, surprise. Arnal was implicated in a massive pump and dump scheme to artificially inflate the company's value. So we can only conclude here that either his guilt was eating away at him, or other people involved in the fraud were not wanting him to speak out. Okay, look, let's not draw conclusions here. A man died. It's rather unfortunate. Terrible news. Also, he died in the most hilarious way you can possibly die, falling from 18 floors up. I mean, that's, very unusual. But at least Russia's not responsible this one time. Moving on. Former New York City police officer Thomas Webster was found guilty of violently assaulting a police officer defending the U.S. Capitol on January 6 from a mob incited by none other than yours truly, Donald Trump. Because there was a whole ass insurrection and we just moved on because the shit's been so crazy here lately. He's been sentenced to 10 years, which is currently the longest sentencing yet. The sentencing hearing lasted over 2 hours on Thursday, with U.S. District Judge Amit Mehta clearly wrestling over the decision, citing Webster's lack of criminal history, his service as a U.S. Marine, his 20 years working for the New York Police Department, and his service as a first responder on September 11, 2001. I'm struggling less with it, because from the sound of it, this motherfucker should know better. Continuing on. Former White House counsel Pat Cipollone, also known as Patsy Baloney, along with his deputy counsel Pat Philbin, testified last Friday before a federal grand jury investigating the January 6th Capitol riot and the efforts to overturn the 2020 election results. What you can take away from that is that DOJ is not fucking around. They have moved on to the lawyers in the White House. I mean, it's getting fairly harrowing for Trump's legal future here. Former White House aide Cassidy Hutchinson testified that Cipollone had in fact warned days before the attack that Trump and his aides could be charged with every crime imaginable if he joined protesters at the Capitol. And fingers crossed, they're all going to be charged with every crime imaginable. Let's just give DOJ a little more time to put these cases together. Also, the January 6th committee is seeking testimony from former House Speaker Newt Gingrich, who counseled Trump's top advisors to air TV ads that would generate distrust of election results, leading to pressure on state legislatures and governors. Gingrich also had a hand in the fake elector scheme, writing to Meadows and Cipollone to ask who was coordinating the effort to have the fake electors meet on December 14th, 2020. Yikes. Man, this could mean that Gingrich, along with Meadows and Cipollone and anyone else who was involved in a plot to have those fake electors be certified to give Trump the win after Biden actually won the election, are going to be fried. It's not looking great. I'm sure that's one of the things the grand jury questioned Pat Cipollone about in his testimony last week. Gingrich also contacted Meadows late on January 6th, after the riot had been quelled, to ask about continued efforts to halt the certification. Because if a failed coup wasn't enough, you gotta keep looking for other ways to fucking thread the needle on that. And considering that Newt Gingrich is partially responsible for the state of politics as it exists today, that being that it's a shit show, that was one of his original ideas, to turn politics into a fucking dumpster fire crap shoot where you do nothing but attack the other party and its credibility for no reason and based on nothing and no evidence. And yeah, I would be delighted if this motherfucker went to jail. He deserves it. Meanwhile, a Texas attorney has been charged for her alleged role in the January 6th insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. Surprise, surprise. Yet another one. Kelly Sorrell, 43, is accused of witness tampering and conspiracy, according to an indictment filed by prosecutors last week. Sorrell, who confirmed earlier this year that she acted as the president of the Oath Keepers after the arrest of founder Stuart Rhodes, the guy who shot himself in the fucking face and was apparently such a tactical genius that he was in charge of the insurrection on the ground, at least. She was arrested Thursday morning after a U.S. attorney signed and issued an indictment against her Wednesday. According to the indictment, between December 2020 and January 2021, they started early. Sorrell attempted to corruptly obstruct, influence, and impede Congress from certifying the 2020 election and did, quote, aid and abet others known and unknown to the grand jury to do the same. Sorrell, according to the charging documents, planned to impede the peaceful transfer of power. She's also accused of unlawfully entering the U.S. Capitol complex on January 6th, as well as tampering with documents when she allegedly tried to persuade people to withhold records, documents, and other objects from the grand jury tasked with the investigation. This bitch was doing everything. All the crimes. Smorgasbord of crimes. It's like she's qualified to represent Trump as an attorney. Like, this is fucking bananas. It's insane. Prior to Rhodes' arrest, she had been serving as the general counsel for the Oath Keepers, according to her website. And she also volunteered with Lawyers for Trump in November 2020 and got involved in legal challenges to the election results in Michigan. Bitches everywhere doing all the fucking crimes. Moving on. In an interview with Wendy Bell, a far-right media personality in Pennsylvania, where Trump gave an endorsement to struggling Dr. Oz, the master of the crudité. It's not a fucking martial art. It's a vegetable tray. Trump said, I will tell you, I will look very favorably about full pardons if I decide to run and if I win. I will be looking very, very strongly about pardons, full pardons, and I mean full pardons with an apology. Fake news. Excuse my terrible Trump impression, but if you don't like it, fuck off. It's also ironic that after a speech in which Biden called out the extreme MAGA Republicans for the fascists that they are, that the media backlash was all about how divisive Biden was. Not even considering the fact that Trump just threatened to pardon numerous people who he incited to overthrow the government. Good job there, guys. You guys are really doing it the fuck up. Meanwhile, Ginny Thomas, the wife of U.S. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, contacted at least 2 Wisconsin state lawmakers, including the chair of the Senate Elections Committee, urging them to overturn President Joe Biden's 2020 election win. It's been previously reported that she also sent messages to more than 24 lawmakers in Arizona, asking them to do the same. In her communications with lawmakers in both states, Thomas urged Republicans to choose their own slate of electors after the election, arguing that results giving Biden a victory in the states were marred by fraud. Despite numerous reviews, lawsuits, and recounts, no widespread fraud calling into question the results has been discovered in either state. Please stand strong in the face of political and media pressure, Thomas wrote in the emails received by Wisconsin lawmakers. Please reflect on the awesome authority granted to you by our Constitution, and then please take action to ensure that a clean slate of electors is chosen for our state. Yeah, this bitch probably going to jail too. Mark Meadows and Pat Cipollone, or rather Patsy Baloney, can save her a fucking seat. Keep her cell warm till she gets there. Also, just 6 days before the Justice Department subpoenaed the recovered highly sensitive documents housed at Mar-a-Lago, one of Trump's attorneys, Alina Habba, told a New York court that she had scoured the estate searching for records in response to a separate legal matter. On May 5th, she told a New York state court that she conducted a search of Trump's private residence and office at Mar-a-Lago that was so diligent that it included all desks, drawers, nightstands, dressers, closets, and more. She was looking for records in response to a subpoena issued by New York Attorney General Letitia James, who was also investigating matters related to the Trump Organization. This bitch has found a way to make herself a witness in multiple criminal investigations. Congratulations. That's some very fine attorneying you've done there. Good job. Kudos to you. The same filing also includes an affidavit from Trump himself indicating that he authorized Alina to search his private residence and his personal office located at Mar-a-Lago for any and all documents responsive to the subpoena. Habba also indicated that she conducted similar searches at Trump's residences and his office at the Bedminster estate. So we can only assume that she's lying her ass off. I can't believe the FBI hasn't fucking searched Bedminster and Trump Tower at this point. Like, I don't know what they're waiting on, but clearly these people cannot tell the truth for the life of them. No matter the consequences. I wouldn't take their word for it that she didn't find anything else. No, it's just me. It's just me. And the filing submitted to the New York AG's office raises key questions in relation to the separate Mar-a-Lago probe, chiefly whether Habba ended up handling any of the documents that DOJ later discovered at Trump's club, and if so, whether she has the clearance to have done so. Well, I can go ahead and tell you right now, she doesn't have the clearance to do so. Hell, even members of the FBI's search team had to apply for upgraded security clearances because they weren't qualified to handle the documents that they found. I mean, that's the fucking FBI. Like, what are we doing? Also, Truth Social, the app launched by Donald Trump, is a speed freak. Learn how to speak English, dog. Is a free speech platform for conservatives. It's facing serious financial and legal stress as it tries to survive. Truth Social currently owes one of its vendors, an internet infrastructure company for conservatives called RightForge, around $1.6 million in backdated payments. This actually puts Truth Social at risk of losing the cloud hosting support that it needs to operate. Bum, 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 bum. Sad face. Beyond its financial issues, Truth Social and the SPAC that it was planned to merge with in order to go public are facing serious legal problems and regulatory probes that could derail those plans. Surprise, surprise, anything run by Devin Nunes and touched by Trump will be under investigation. The U.S. Patent and Trademark Office has refused Trump's application for a trademark. Also, the blank check company, otherwise known as the SPAC, called Digital World Acquisition Corp., is under investigation by the SEC for possibly negotiating their deal prior to going public, which is illegal. It's a crime. You can go to jail for that shit. An investor sued Digital World Acquisition Corp. CEO last year claiming fraud. I mean, they might as well have pulled a Lev Parnas and named it Fraud Guarantee because you were guaranteed to get crimes. There's been confusion regarding whether or not certain members of Truth Social's board are actually still on the board, including Trump himself. Yeah, way to try and dip out of there before the feds came knocking. Truth Social's financial problems are tied in part to the setbacks related to the merger. Trump Media and Technology Group, the parent company to Truth Social, announces plans to merge with Digital World Acquisition Corp last year, a move that would take it public. Going public would give the company access to roughly $1 billion, it says it raised from various hedge funds and investors. Last week, Digital World Acquisitions tried to delay its earnings report to securities regulators. Good luck trying to hide that shit. The week before, it asked shareholders to approve an extension of its merger with the Trump management group by a year. I don't think it's going to make it that long. It is unclear how many people, or exactly who, are working for Truth Social. Most members of Trump's presidential inner circle are not involved in the day-to-day operations. The CEO, former Republican Congressman Devin Nunes, makes occasional media appearances to discuss the app, and a few people say on LinkedIn that they work for Truth Social. Earlier this year, 3 top officials in product, technology, and legal departments left the company. A couple of sources familiar with the departure said the executives resigned in part due to cash flow issues. Also, earlier this week, it has been reported and pictures have been taken of the South Florida headquarters of Truth Social, and that bitch is empty. It is like a scene from The Game with Michael Douglas where CRS fucking vanished out of the building with no trace. Like it's all empty. There's no furniture. There's no phones. There's no fucking servers. They even pulled the fucking card reader out of the door. They have vanished. They was like, peace the fuck out, yo. We are up out this. Much like everything run in any sort of fashion by Donald Trump, fraud is usually involved along with money laundering. I'm guessing that Truth Social is broke and will be disappearing very soon, especially since it's been pulled from the Google Play Store, meaning that Android users no longer have access to this bitch. And I'm guessing Apple will follow suit soon, and that will be the end of Truth Social. And you think, considering Trump doesn't have access to any social media whatsoever, other than possibly posting angry Yelp reviews, that maybe he would want his own social media app to function. The guy's motivations, I mean, it just escapes me sometimes. I have no idea what he's doing. And finally, back to Fani Willis in Georgia. She is probing efforts to meddle with the 2020 election results, seeking testimony from Harrison Floyd, not to be confused with Harrison Ford, a leader with the organization Black Voices for Trump, which has to be a lie because there's like 3 black people who support Trump and he killed one of them with COVID. She is looking into his alleged role in a plot to pressure a Georgian election worker to falsely admit to election fraud. Willis said that Floyd, a Maryland resident, is a necessary and material witness for the investigation and asked him to testify before a special purpose grand jury on September 28th, later this month. In a new court filing, Willis said Floyd arranged a meeting between Fulton County election worker Ruby Freeman and Travian Cuddy, known as former publicist to R. Kelly and Kanye West. Because of fucking course, you've got someone associated with Kanye West trying to help Trump win the 2020 election. I mean, that's totally not a coincidence. And also, if you're not familiar with Ruby Freeman, she gave very riveting testimony before the January 6th committee earlier this year. A harrowing experience with the Trump supporters. She gave it a 0 out of 10. Do not recommend. I guess the assumption there is that Cuddy was hoping to pressure her into saying that there was evidence of fraud in the 2020 election and that Trump and his people would use that to get the Secretary of State, Raffensperger, to overturn the 2020 election that Biden won in favor of Trump. Fani Willis is digging into this from every angle, and she's finding a lot. And so are the feds. It's a lot of fucking crimes. If anything, I think the major takeaway from today is goddamn, all the crime. All the crime. Why are there so many crimes? I've never seen anything like this. Never seen anything like it at all. As for my closing thoughts, one of the things I've been thinking about all week is the response to President Biden's speech about the soul of our nation and the threats our democracy is facing, not only from the right, but from media outlets such as CNN calling President Biden's speech divisive. And I couldn't wrap my head around what the outrage was, but I think what I've settled on is that maybe President Biden's speech was divisive. Not for the country, though. It was divisive for Republicans because he gave the sane section of the grand old party an off-ramp. He was like, hey, our democracy is at stake. I know you not to be extreme. I've even worked with some of your representatives in Congress to pass legislation and get things done. You're not them. You don't have to be those people. You don't have to support insurrections or attempt to overthrow the government just because you lost an election. You are sane, sensible, reasonable people. And while we might not agree on the same policies, we do agree that we support America. And that message is threatening to places like Fox News and CNN because instead of creating a divide between the two parties, which is what media ratings are driven by, or at least they have been for the past few years, Biden is dividing Republicans. And CNN can't make no money off that. If Republicans are fighting each other, Fox News can't make any money off of that. Republicans in disarray, while good for the country, not good for the bottom line. Hence the utter outrage at Joe Biden's nerve. I mean, how dare he give Republicans an opportunity to unite with Democrats in service of standing up to the utter batshit insanity of the far right wing of the Republican Party. The fuck was he thinking? And I think that includes today's episode of Pardon the Insurrection. Join us again. I do believe my co-host Ty and Carol will be back for the next installment. If you're sick of hearing my fucking voice, I totally understand. You at least have them to look forward to next time. Do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe, turn on your notifications, make sure you don't miss the next episode because we're on absolutely no schedule whatsoever. So who knows when the next installment of Pardon the Insurrection podcast might drop. Thanks for listening. And this has been your host, D Knight.